Good morning, everybody. MG here, MGCovers, bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video, Billy Walters' Margin Concept Part 2. Released a Part 1 back in January. This is the Part 2. We're going to get into a little bit more depth in this video, explain what margin concept is. I'm going to give you 3 examples from WNBA, soccer, and MLB, and also show you how you can apply his margin concept and help you build very successful and profitable sports betting models. Before we do that, as always, if you're watching this video for the first time, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. If you're a new viewer, you can get a ton of value simply by subscribing to the channel. We have a ton of content related to sports betting and give you the unadulterated truth and how to succeed in this crazy business. If you want to follow me on social media, it's MGCovers, covers spelled with a Z. Give out a lot of content and some tips on Instagram as well. So if you follow me there, we have something called Free Fridays. I give out all my lines for all sports on Friday as well. All right, so let's dive into margin concept. And the first thing we need to do is we need to explain what margin concept is. So you have, there's 2 ways to do it. You have your line versus the sportsbook line, and you're measuring the difference between those. And you also have your line or the team that you're considering versus the team you're considering playing against, the difference between those two. So let's define margin and what we're talking about and how Billy Walters came up with this margin concept. The larger the point differential between 2 teams, the more likely the team with the higher score will win. Conversely, if the margin difference is small between the 2 teams, the game's outcome is less predictable. So in sports betting, what you're looking for is you're looking for a significant margin. And you might say, well, what's that margin? I'm going to show you 3 examples and how you can apply that. So let's dive right into it and look at soccer. These are the lines from yesterday. And when I explain concepts, I try to dumb it down, make it as simple as I can, rather than using a lot of statistical jargon. I try to make it very simple, and also I try to give you guys very real live examples and actual plays that I made from yesterday and real life sports betting examples, because I think that is the best way to learn. So this was my soccer lines from yesterday from Euro Cup as well as Copa America. Now the way I'm going to show you in this video, in the soccer example, we're going to look at the team we're looking at considering versus the quote bad team and looking at the difference between those. So for example, you look at Romania and the Netherlands. Netherlands was minus 150, Romania was minus 133. So that was only a 17-point differential. So that means this outcome via my model is less predictable, right? All right, let's look at Austria and Turkey. Austria was minus 175, Turkey was plus 117. So we get a difference of 192. And let me explain how you do this with money lines. So in money lines, so you have minus 175. And then this can go all the way up to minus whatever, minus 200, minus 300. So how do you get the difference between these 2 numbers is very simple. So you have in sports betting, if you've got a plus 117 line and it's going to the favorite side, it goes plus 117, plus 116, plus 115, all the way back to 0. So a simple way to do this, if you take plus 117, this number here minus 100, you get 17. And then you just simply add 17 to 175, and that gives you 192. So that's what you do when you have a favorite versus a dog to get your point differential. Now, in this case with Brazil and Colombia, Colombia was minus 367, Brazil was 175. And generally speaking, when I have 2 favorites, I don't like to play against a favorite, not unless I'm getting an extreme amount of value. And we did have there was a lot of value on Colombia's side last night as well. So if you take minus 367 minus 175, you're going to get a differential of 192 in favor of Colombia. And then finally, look at this one. We had Costa Rica at minus 133. We had Paraguay at plus 233. So the way you can do this, again, 233 minus 100. That gives you 133 that you have to add back to this 133 and gives you a total point differential of 266. Now, let's apply the margin concept. And going back to the definition, the larger the margin difference between two teams, the more likely the team with the higher score will win. So in this case, which team has the greatest margin difference? It is Costa Rica over Paraguay of a 266 differential between those four teams. So if we're looking at what is the best play out of those four matches, it is Costa Rica. Boom, Costa Rica cashes at best odds. This is from Sportsbook Review. You could have gotten 360, 370, but they win at plus 371. So the point is, when you're evaluating, the margin concept is really good to help you get your, quote, best play, meaning, out of these four matches, which is the best play? The best play is Costa Rica and Paraguay playing Costa Rica. Why? Because it has the greatest margin difference. Now, the way Billy Walters did it was he would, let's say, for example, he would make this, he did it by giving each play a star. And a lot of handicappers do this. I don't do it this way. So this would be a 5-star play. This would be a 4-star play, 4-star play, and this might be a 1-star play. And what he did was, on the 5-star plays, the team with the biggest margin, he would wager more. So maybe wager 500 here, 400, 400, and 100. I'm just showing you that example. So, and also too, when you're building models, this can help you identify if the model is good. Meaning, if you have a lot of these, meaning if these teams have a big margin and they're losing a lot in your stat model, it's basically telling you that the stat model is no good. So now let's move on to WNBA example. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to compare it to the sportsbook line. So let's pull up, let me see if I can get all this on the screen. Yeah, we got it. This is perfect. I'll scroll back up. And make sure I'm not missing anything. So these are my lines here. So we got Minnesota, New York. So in this line, we had Minnesota favored by a half point. And so we come over here to the sportsbook line, and we see this is +6. So then +6 added to the -5 for Minnesota, we have a 6.5 point differential in favor of Minnesota. Let's look at the next game, Chicago and Atlanta. Chicago was -7, my line. The sportsbook had Chicago at +1, so that gives us an 8 point differential. Indiana and Vegas. Now, the way I handicap WNBA or any kind of point differential, I would never play, or majority of the time I don't play a dog, meaning like if Las Vegas is -3 and the books line has them at -12, obviously there is value as far as the margin goes with Indiana, but I wouldn't play that simply because if they're a dog via my line and they're an underdog in the books, more times than not they're going to lose. And majority of time, if a team loses, majority of the time they're not going to cover. So that's how I handicap that. But for the sake of this video, Indiana was +3, and you look over here, they were plus 10. But that's why I didn't show this in the margin concept here. Whoops. So let's go over here to the last one, Washington -13. You look at the books line was 2. So that gives us a total of, I actually got that written down wrong. So if that's a 2, oh, I know what it is. I used a different line when I was calculating this. So let's just use this line here, 13 + 2. It's showing the best available line. So that's going to be 15.5. So now, if we do the same exercise we did previously, we have Minnesota 6.5, we have Chicago at 8, Washington at 15.5. So which is the greatest margin? It is Washington and Los Angeles. They win and cover. The next greatest margin is Chicago. They also win and cover. And Minnesota, with just a 6.5 point margin, they ended up losing. And actually that was, what was that, a push? Yeah. So that was a push. So interesting, the team with the greatest margin won and covered. The next point differential was 8. They won and covered. And then you had Minnesota ended up pushing. Very, very fascinating. So again, same concept. if you were using Billy Walters' margin concept, you would wager this might be a 5-star play, a 4-star play, and a 3-star play. So you'd wager more here, and you would have went 2-0 with a push and been profitable. All right, finally, let's take a look at Major League Baseball from yesterday. Now, this is very, very fascinating. I'll have to juggle some of this around here so you can see it. Okay, so now I'm going to explain how I kind of use margin concept in my power rankings and some changes that I made. The previous model we had went up to about 24 units. We were playing against bottom 7 teams, and it was real successful. Went up to about 24 units, and then it went on a serious losing skid. Through 50 games, it hit about 38% and went all the way down to basically about 12 units. So at that point, I ended up changing the model, and I want to show you exactly what I did. So via my model, these are the top 10 teams via my model. And what I did was I'm only going to play top 6 teams, the top 6 teams. And if any of the top 6 teams are playing any team in the top 10, I pass. The reason being is I want to have a significant margin. This way, if, say, the 6th team is playing the 11th team down here somewhere, I'll have significant margin, and so on and so on. And it's proved to be extremely successful. I'll show you the results of that. All right, so let's take a look at the top 6 teams. And ironically, all top 6 teams via the model qualified as plays. But I want to look at this margin. This is super fascinating. So, again, we do the same thing here. Mets is minus 205. Washington is 143. I'm not going to explain how to calculate that. I just did that. So that's a 249 margin. And we played all of these that you see an X on. Houston minus 183. Toronto minus 114. We played that one. Notice that was only a 69-point margin. Scroll down here, Detroit and Minnesota. We had Detroit minus 187, 186 minus 187 Minnesota, plus 186 Detroit, 273 margin. We also played Philadelphia with a 214-point margin. And then finally we had San Diego and Texas, a plus 194 margin. I think we had one more. Yep. And then the last one, the game from last night, late, big margin there at 269. So what's fascinating, and again, this is really can help you. So we played Baltimore, San Diego, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Houston, and the Mets. Now let's pull up. Let's slide this over here so you can see it. So let's take a look at those games and the results here. It basically went 4-2. I'll go ahead and tell you that. So the first one, Mets, we win that one 7-2. Houston lost. Minnesota won. San Diego basically got blown out. And we won Baltimore. Did I get everything? Yeah, went 4-2. Did I cover all those? Yeah, Baltimore wins. Sorry about that. There it is. Baltimore wins 2-0. San Diego loses. Philadelphia wins. That was the one I missed. 6-4. Minnesota won 5-3. Houston lost 6-7. Mets won 7-2. Now, if we go back over here to the margin, let me slide me over here. And this is a really good exercise in helping you build models. Like, look at the differential. So we had 249, and all of them were just about were over 200, with the exception of, look at Houston and Toronto, was only a 69 point differential, right? And another one that was below 200 was San Diego and Texas. So you had Houston at 69 point differential, San Diego at plus 194 differential. So pulling this back up, what were our 2 losses from yesterday? Houston with a 69 point differential lost, and San Diego got blown out, and they only had a 194 differential. So application of this, how you would improve this, and again, the way Billy would have done this is you would have wagered, for example, if, let's say we're calling any play over 200 point differential a 5-star play. So we wagered whatever amount on the 5-star plays, And then if it's less than 200, maybe that would be a 3-star play. And then finally, this Houston-Toronto would have been a 1-star play. Now, another way you can interpret margin concept is you can give yourself, and I do this a lot when I'm building models, I simply have a cutoff point for a play. Like you can see here, and again, I'm not going to change my model because this has been very successful just playing these top 6 teams. But what you could do is you could just say, okay, I need to have at least a 200-point margin in order to have a play. So then yesterday you would have passed on Houston and you would have passed on San Diego. Instead of going 4-2, you would have went 4-0. So understanding margin concept can significantly improve your handicapping. All right, let's look at, no, we've already looked at WNBA. So that's basically the overview. And I can go ahead and show you the, this is the model. I don't want to go through this. I can just scroll over here to the bottom. I tell you what, I think I can show that. I showed it from earlier. So since we made these changes, let me see if I can pull it up this way. Yep. Yeah, so since June the 16th, we're up 10 units in baseball. And after it had basically crashed and burned with the playing the bottom 17. So currently year to date for MLB, we're 103 and 89 up 23.79 units. I don't feel like I'll have to make changes. I think the way that we're capping has proven to be profitable, and I don't anticipate any changes. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you that can potentially help you, those of you that are looking to build an MLB model, this is how I run my lines. And these are, in essence, arbitrary numbers, but I think this can help you. So what you see is lines based on from 1 through 30. So, for example, whatever the top team is via my model and the stats that I'm using for Major League Baseball, I'm going to give them a minus 205 line. Second team, minus 197, and so on and so on. So if I'm only playing the top 6 teams, that 6th team is going to get minus 180. Now, from 6 to 7, I made it minus 129. So then there's a drastic drop off, and then so on and so on and so on. So what is the right or correct line to use when you're building a model? You're just going to have to experiment with it. You can do this for any sport. You can rank your teams from 1 all the way to 30 for NBA or WNBA for whatever stat you're doing. And you can back test this way. So you can do what I did. Each day you run the model during the back test. How many times do the top 5 teams win? And if you have a lot of the top teams via your model are losing, or they're losing over, say, a span of, say, 50 games, then the stat that you're using or stats you're using does not correlate to winning. So very important way to incorporate and adjust your model. So anyway, hope this video helps. If you want access to these models every single day, you get access to all my lines for soccer, WNBA, as well as Major League Baseball. It's only $50 a month, very inexpensive. And you also get access to all my coaching videos as well. We have about, I think, 170 videos on the website. So just those videos are only for coaching clients, so you can expedite the learning process for this business very quickly. Watch a video a day. A couple months, you'll have watched over 60 videos. So that's $50 a month if you want access to everything I just mentioned, in addition to all my plays. $100 a month, and the best value is to join for a year. Instead of paying $100 a month, you can pay $4.99 one time, and you get access to everything on the site for $500. And before I go, I do want to mention the stat model program. I can actually coach you building stat models. There's a link to sign up to get on the email list. I'll send you more information. I'm also creating a new stat model program. The 2 programs that I have, it is expensive because it's daily coaching. I'm going to have another program I'm going to introduce a little bit later. It's going to be less expensive, but I think it will benefit a lot of people. So if you want to be the first to hear about that, sign up for the stat model email list. And that's it. Hope this video brought you a ton of value. Talk to you guys soon, and best of luck when incorporating margin concept into your stat models. Peace.